I have a degree in computer engineering, a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, but I wasn't always sure what I wanted to do. But I was very lost. I was lost a lot. And it was because of that feeling of being lost that I kept trying to find something else.
How can people like make sure that such kind of scenario, moving from job to job, doesn't affect their value as a talent or as a professional? Yeah.
I think the core thing here is like how you frame it. At the end of the day, everyone has a story. My toughest transition journey is actually the last one. I knew that I wanted to move into a remote role, but I also had a child coming. I constantly thought about quitting and just being at home. Like, I felt like there was no point. And while I was in the hospital, I realized the only thought in my head was, I need to quit.
Hi. It's another episode of Inside Room where we bring you non-coding tech professionals to hear their stories and how they've navigated their journeys. The challenges, the struggles, the wins, and everything in between that makes them who they are today. So sit down, relax. And today we are hanging out with Wamide Animashaun. She's someone who has mastered the art of bold career pivots. She's currently VP Growth at Propel and co-founder of COAS, a non-profit empowering women in STEM careers. She's also a career coach, helping professionals navigate transitions, confidently and successfully. With over a decade of experience across tech, consulting, energy, she is the best person to actually address issues around navigating careers, building successful careers, and navigating all the challenges and wins that come in between all of that. So sit down, speak all the lessons, and if you have questions, feel free to drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Let's get started.
Hi, Wabdi. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm good. Thank you for joining us on Inside Room. So it's good to like have you on board, to come and talk to us from your experience, being a career coach, being a career advocate, expert, and all of that. So I would like you to start with just introducing yourself. I think I saw one tweet where you mentioned that you had like 5 career transitions, and I'm like, whoa, that's a lot, right? And then I had questions, right? And I also saw some people, asking questions under that particular tweet. And I thought, why not? Let's have one media on board, right? So, can you just go take us through, like, briefly into your background, how all this, to the point where you now became the VP, business and user at Propel. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks again for having me, Esther. I started out my career as a front-end developer back at Jumia in 2013, and I have a degree in computer engineering, a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, but I wasn't always sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't always sure how to use that particular skill, but I decided to just, go after front end because I really like design, branding, and anything just UI. Um, but then I was, like everybody else, also applying for a couple of other opportunities. And one of those opportunities was PwC's graduate trainee program. And so a year after I had been at Jumia, then the PwC opportunity panned out. And so I moved. At this point, I was already a little bored. So I knew that it was the right move, but I was switching completely into audit. This was something I had never done before. But it was a graduate trainee program. So obviously they set us up, trained us, and did all of that. When I started in audit, I very much knew that I didn't want to stay in there. I was in IT audit, thankfully. So I still had the chance to leverage some of my tech skills, but I really wanted to just move to consulting. And so I pushed and fought for that within PwC, and I was able to transfer from audit to consulting. So that was then my third switch. And again, after a couple of years working at PwC, I started to itch for something different, something more. I had been on a couple of projects and I guess I got bored. I get bored a lot. So at this point, I'd been working long enough to know that I just wanted to combine a mix of my technology skills with business management experience. And so that became a decision to pursue an MBA. I was young, I was only 25 at the time. So I did also question and wonder if that was the right move and if I was mature enough to actually go for an MBA. But I got a full scholarship from the Age 11 Tears Foundation. And so off I went. I took a gap here from PwC and then I went up for my MBA. Whilst I was studying in Greece, I obviously paid attention to a lot of the courses and a lot of the classwork that was resonating with me. At the time, it was largely around building, customer centricity, and anything around organizational leadership. So I very well knew that I wanted to build at a startup. And when I was done with my MBA, I came back to Nigeria, but I didn't go back to PwC. I basically moved to a startup at the time. It was a supply chain startup, sort of. It was a stealth startup, and they were trying to build something for the artisan industry. So I was just in charge of setting up everything from the ground up. So I took up a general operations manager role as a 26-year-old, just managing people for the first time, more or less.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had managed people at my nonprofits, which is how I got into that job. I actually told the boss then that, oh, I can definitely do this because I've been managing friends and volunteers at my nonprofit, and that's that experience that I used. But I did learn a lot on that role, and after a while, I moved into another part of the company as a business and transformation manager. And this part of the company was more oil and gas and energy, but it wasn't really my vibe. So again, I needed to get out. At this time, I really just wanted more flexibility and agency. And I was really looking for a remote role. I knew that coming back to tech was going to be a way to get me there. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I did. I moved, found a remote role in tech, and here I am. I've been in this role for 4 years, and I'll lead the business and users division as a VP at Propel.
Wow, that's an impressive track record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All the transitions you had, up until when you got into Propel, from partnership to VP, right? How did you how did you pull it off? Like, because sometimes people, there's this part where you just know that, oh, I need to move, but then you're also considering, you don't want to take pay cuts because you're moving to another role. You're considering what recruiters will say. There's just a lot of factors that come into play when it comes to you wanting to move into another career. So
Mm.
what what was what was the mindset like? Right?
I
Let me
guess
just say,
audacity, sheer audacity. The
yeah.
Lulu was the solution to my move, if I'm being honest. For one, I didn't necessarily ask for permission, but I was very lost. I was lost a lot. And it was because of that feeling of being lost that I kept trying to find something else. Even going for my MBA was a solution to a problem, like me feeling like I had outgrown the role I was at PwC, or just feeling like I wanted to leverage my skills in a different way. For one, I wanted to be a manager, and I still had like 3 years to go at PwC to becoming a manager. So going for my MBA was a fast track to getting me to do that because I came back and I was then leading a team. So but all of my transitions here, audacity on one hand, but honestly, I think I was probably just in my own bubble. And I think that's what a lot of people need to do, because if you look at everything else, there would be signals that would tell you that it's not possible and you can't do it. But the one thing that's helped me the most is being very close to my gut and listening to my own inner voice, listening to my own self. I did explain how I moved from being a front-end developer to where I am today as a VP. And in sharing that, it's important to say that there were parts of it that were intentional and there were parts of it that were not intentional. When I did move from my role at Jumia to the PwC role, it wasn't particularly like I had planned it out. I was applying to everything. I applied for my Jumia role and got it in 2 weeks. went for an interview once, and that was pretty much it. At the same time, I was applying to several other graduate trainee roles, from McKinsey to KPMG to PwC. So I basically just followed through with whatever I had, started. And so with the PwC one, I was just following through, but also I had a lot of representation around me. For one, what I knew PwC as was as an accounting firm, but I did have an amazing person in my network that said to me, look, you can also be part of consulting. So this kind of explains why when I went in, I was not happy about being in audit. I really wanted to be part of consulting. I do like talking. I like interacting with people. I love building relationships and connecting. So along the way, what I naturally did was just think about, what kind of problem am I solving? And am I using my skills to the best of my knowledge? So if I start to feel like my work doesn't matter, then I know that something has to change. Either the task itself has to change, or then I need to move. So honestly, a lot of audacity or courage, if you can put it that way, being in my own bubble. I wasn't necessarily asking for permission. I wasn't asking, do you think, do you think, do you think? I only did that like whilst I was at PwC. And for a lot of the questions that I did ask, I didn't get the answers to them. But the one thing that kept me going when I did apply for the MBA and got it was talking to one of my old managers that then said to me, you know a lot more than you think. So the core thing in dealing with any of these is like learning more, opening yourself up to knowledge. And that's exactly what I did. But more importantly, I was paying attention to how I was feeling in these roles, and that informed my next move. Now, it became intentional after my MBA because, like I said, I still had my job at PwC. So I really felt like a crazy person coming back, leaving a job at PwC. So I literally had to call the partner to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come back to this job. A job that they had held for me for a whole year. And then taking up an offer at a company that no one knew. It was a stealth company. But at the time, I already had PwC on my CV. And I already knew that, unfortunately, that was not enough. It's not enough to have a big name on your CV. You also have to make sure that you're using your skills or solving the problems that you really want to be solving. I'm such a work-life alignment person. So work for me is so much more than what you're earning or where you're working. It's also about the work that you're doing. So calling them up and saying, I'm sorry, I can't come back. At first, I said, give me 3 months. And then in January, because I came back in like September, in January, I really had to say, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. But I felt crazy. My family members definitely thought I was crazy, because who leaves a job at PwC and goes to work somewhere nobody knows to do something that is not entirely clear? I had no JD. I did everything from warehousing to inventory management to hiring, because like I had to build a team from scratch, but I also had to build the processes and frameworks necessary to keep the company going with or without me. That experience in building, in setting up structures, is what I still use today at Propel. And it's important that you're paying attention to these things. So once you got intentional, it was more about, how do I want to use my skills at this point in my life? I left a job in oil and gas to come to Propel at first for the same salary, not because of anything, but because I wanted flexibility and agency. There was another role I had. I was also interviewing with other companies, and I did have one that was going to pay me a little more, a little closer to the mark I wanted to be at. But what I wanted at the time, I was a new mom, was just flexibility and agency. I just wanted to work remotely. So paying attention to what you want to do at a certain time in your life is super important, and you can outgrow it. Like, I'm the same person who said, hey, I wanted to work at this startup. I'm the same person who said, you know what, by now, I'm no longer interested, right? So audacity, be in your bubble, and being in your bubble is kind of being able to listen to what your gut is saying to you at that point in time. There's work that you do that you feel happy about, and you know, oh my God, I'm so happy I did this. And there's times that you do some work and you're like, oh, I hate what I'm doing. Pay attention to those things because they're signals that are taking you to where you should be.
Oh, thank you. That's a very brilliant answer. Thank you for providing context to how you move in between this, because I know that there are people that they understand, they know that probably it's time to move, but they just can't get the courage or find a leverage to justify their wanting to move. So now let's talk about let's go further into if you remember at the start of the conversation, I talked about a tweet that you made on, I think that was like 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And you talked about the fact that you are like more comfortable now being a generalist. Before it used to be like a struggle, now you're more comfortable being a generalist. I've also seen people talk about this, but then I am curious to know how practical, is it to say I'm a generalist, I do everything. Because, there are people that in a particular field, they have 10 years of experience, they have 5 years of experience, they are more or less like experts already in that field. So how does somebody who has been here and there, like everywhere, how can that person come forward and say, oh, I'm a generalist and I'm just going to build my career like that? And what does it even really mean to say, I am a generalist?
Okay. I mean, it's not like I go about on my CV saying I'm a generalist, right? But in creating and writing that tweet, I was just trying to help people see, like, you actually don't have to pressure yourself. If you don't have like one particularly T skill or deep skill. So being a generalist it's not just about like knowing a bit of everything. Like while that is good on the surface, it's so much more than that. It's actually being able to connect the dots that others would not naturally see. So all of the experience and things that I have done in the past have come to make me this person that I am today. The wealth of knowledge and the wealth of experience that I bring to my work right now at Propel in creating partnership frameworks and whatnot came from setting up the structures at this company where nobody knew me. The part where I am creating conversation, stakeholder management, communicating, putting things in systems. They came from my time at PwC, where you're in several project management meetings, you're having several conversations with vendors across different parts of the continent. So everything really does count. And being a generalist is being able to like weave all of those things. And it's important that you're thinking about the depth of transferable skills that you have at this point. For me, that looks like communication, that looks like system thinking, that looks like stakeholder management, and just being able to navigate different contexts and adaptability, so to say. So there's almost nothing you throw at me right now that I won't be able to deal with. But all of that, I got comfortable with doing based on my experience in consulting. In consulting today, you're dealing with a public sector client. Tomorrow, you're dealing with somebody else in energy. Next tomorrow, you're building a research system for somebody in mind. So the wealth of experience that I've gathered and the person I am today is based on the skills I have stacked over the years. But in saying that I'm a generalist, I'm just trying to say I can't term myself a product designer or a software engineer or whatnot. But being a generalist is what applies for me because what I am is really a builder. I'm basically about creating things from scratch or transforming things that are breaking down and setting them up in a way that they can grow and they can scale. So whether you're a generalist or a specialist, the core thing is understanding who you are so you can position yourself to be valuable and competitive really in today's market. I guess the core thing to say here is frame generalism as adaptability, right? Just frame it as being able to navigate different contexts, frame it as you being a fast learner, frame it as you having such a wealth of experience that you're able to see and weave things from different sets and different places. Even today, my front-end experience still counts. I always see things through a design eye. I always see things through a different eye than most people would. I've managed tons of transformation projects and like IT project. And today it's the easiest thing for me. I'm great with tools. So being a generalist is not like I know everything, but it's like so much more than it's so much more than that. And it's being able to just weave and marry all the context, all the skills, all the things you've gained over the years, and using that to move things forward very quickly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for breaking that down, so that at least we understand what it means. Because I mean, I think there was a time where I think it was even on Treford, right, where we made a post and people were talking about. Now it was in the context of marketers, right? Should a marketer niche down into a certain
Mm,
skill, or
mm,
should everything and then just move from there? And then the argument then was that, I mean, if you're starting off, it's good to be like a generalist, learn a lot at the
mhm,
start and later on just niche down
mhm.
as an expert in certain field. Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you for the explanation. Now let's talk about these transitions, right? Moving in between jobs, maybe from one role to the other, and all of that. And the trend, I would even say this is really kind of common among tech people, where you see people in the space of 1 year
Mm,
on, and even more common among software developers, right? Like 6 months, 1 year, they're already in the next company, they're here
mhm,
and there. So while it might be good for people in software development, the coding professionals and all of, I mean, technical professionals now, right? How about people who are like marketers, who are like managers, who are like designers, how can those people like navigate transitions? Now, let's say in the context of moving from roles to roles, right? How can you make sure that it doesn't appear like, oh, this person is a job hopper, right? You're always moving 1 year, 2 years, into another role, so that how can people like make sure that such kind of scenario, moving from job to job, doesn't affect their value as a talent or as a professional? Yeah, I
mm,
don't know if you get,
mhm.
or do you want me to repeat the question?
I sort of get it. I think the core thing here is like how you frame it, right? At the end of the day, everyone has a story, and everyone's journey is really a story that can be told. So while it might look like you're moving from one place to the other, it's really how you decide to communicate that, not just in talking, but also in how you frame it and in how you write it. Your summary can easily include the reason why you're doing things like that. So for me, while you will see different job titles on my resume, my summary will always have the core of what I'm doing in all of these different roles. It's the theme has always been the same. I'm building ecosystems, I'm scaling operations, I'm building relationships, I'm driving growth, right? The way that I do it could look different from one role to the other, but it's being able to frame what exactly that story is so that it doesn't just look scattered or whatnot. Now, there's job hopping and there's transition, to be very honest. And at the core of it, everyone has their why and their reasons. If you're a software engineer that is moving every 6 months or every 3 months or every 9 months, of course, people are going to raise an eyelid because really hiring is expensive. Nobody wants to spend all that time talking to someone, getting them into their organization only for them to leave in another 6 months and they have to start the hiring process all over again. So that would raise a flag because people want to understand, can you stay? Right? Or are you going to leave us? Right? So it's important to also understand like why you're doing those things so that you can properly weave that as a story. I haven't like stayed in roles for less than 6 months. Like I usually do like a 2 to 3 year stint before I leave any role. Not because I'm like being super intentional about it, but really in 2 to 3 years, it's enough time for you to have gathered whether you like what you're doing or you want to move into something else. So I will say that it's important that people also give themselves a bit more time, except you're like in the first 2 years of your career. I did leave my first job barely after a year. But it would have been weird if I left the next one then just a year after and then the next one a year after. But then there is no one size fit all, because companies are also different in the way that they treat people. So people do have their reasons for wanting to leave. I'm not going to ask anyone to stay in a toxic company just in the name of wanting to make something look good on their resume. So there are all of these other factors to consider, but at the core of it, know your why and be able to frame that story in the best way possible so that a recruiter just can see the patterns and not just a scattered journey of somebody jumping from one place to the other.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for doing justice to that. And also like putting some difference in between job hopping and actually, doing career transitions. So my next question is, I know you've kind of touched on it about transferable skills. So what are the like most important ones? Maybe for example, we can maybe talk in the context of somebody that is a product manager now, right? Or let me say somebody that is a coming from, let's say, teaching, for example, and then you want to get into product management. You want to do marketing, you want to do sales, you want to do business development, and all the different parts. So how can such a what are the transferable skills that such a person can really focus on, the important ones now that are non-negotiables, like that even when you get on the job, even if you don't have as much experience, core experience within that field yet, right? Those ones are enough to give you a foot, to help you put your foot forward. Yeah.
Right. I always like these questions around transferable skills. And I've actually been looking for a great acronym to kind of describe it so it sticks for people. So
Okay.
let's use the acronym like COAS. I'll explain. It's like
COAS.
COAS, right?
Okay.
I normally used to talk about 3, but I really do think that there are these 4 that people have to be mindful of. Whether you're moving from a receptionist to a product manager, or you are moving from a front-end developer to a consultant like me, or you're moving from a content marketer to a product marketing manager. There's 4 key things that help you move across roles and even across industries. Say you're a software developer that is moving from a fintech company to a health tech company. Number 1, communication. There's nothing that you do that you are not communicating or interacting and sharing, either it's context about your work or trying to translate an idea into a clear outcome. So you will always be valuable when you communicate properly. Let's take the receptionist example. Say there's this receptionist and she manages everything that comes through at the company. Obviously, what she needs to do in telling maybe the operations manager, the HR, or the boss of that place is, "Sir, ma, your appointment is by 3 p.m." That's communication. Sometimes it looks like being able to type out and say, "This week, this is the highlight. This is what happened. We had 4 people visit you. 3 of them, we could move ahead. 1 of them had to reschedule." Whether it is written or verbal, communication is number 1 skill everybody should really, really groom. And transferable skills are one of the best because you can learn them. There's no skill you can't learn, but with transferable skills, even better. So we'll go to the second one. Ownership. I said earlier that I'm always operating at the next level. And what that really looks like is taking ownership of things, not necessarily because you're asked, but because you can see a gap and a problem that needs to be solved. So taking ownership looks like taking on the project no one asked you. For example, that receptionist could have noticed that the front door is not opening properly. Ownership looks like her calling a handyman to come fix that. Right? Scheduling it and just telling the operations manager, "Look, I noticed the door isn't working well, so I have done XYZ." So you've done this thing, you weren't asked, but common sense tells you you should be fixing it. I can bring it to home, and on my work at Propel, I manage the business and users team, and that looks like managing 3 or 4 actual divisions, right? One time I noticed one of the assets that we send out to customers didn't have the best UI. I pushed for a complete revamp. We did the UI and UX changes. And by implementing that change alone, our acceptance rate and acceptance profiles increased.
Wow.
So it's in knowing and seeing the things around you and making a change to it even before you're asked. Number 3 is the R, adaptability or agility, right? Because you are moving from one place to another or you're moving across industries, it's important that you're able to pick up things. The ability to pick up tools, terms, industries, just understanding the context of where you are at. Again, my experience at PwC really, really brings this home for me. There's something that we used to do before you start up on any project. It's called understanding the business context. So, say you've been drafted to work at, let's see, UAC Foods, where they make gala. You're going to just learn everything that they do at UAC Foods, not just about gala. You're going to understand when they were built, who their board of directors are, where they're established. You're going to get the business context, right? Sometimes that looks like business context in some environments. Sometimes that looks like being able to use a new tool. So that receptionist, say she was learning Excel where she was, even though nobody asked her. When she moves into another role, she might eventually start using that skill and she becomes relevant because people can come to her for data. And if you ask for anything from her, she's going to be able to churn it out to you quickly. It looks like training yourself to learn PowerPoint so that when you need to present something, you can do that easily. It looks like training yourself to facilitate meetings so that when they ask you, where are we on XYZ? You're not doing that. You're able to give clear answers about what you're doing. And the last one is S, stakeholder management. So it's a little bit like communication, but this time around, it's actually knowing who within my sphere do I need to be accountable to and do I need to provide information to? So sometimes it's your line manager, sometimes it is somebody else that you need to influence, but your career is moved forward as much as it is moved forward by your skill as much as it is by people. So the stakeholders that you work with, they're also relevant into helping you grow your career. They can become your sponsors, they can become your mentors, they can become the ones that advocate for you even when you're not there. So just to recap, COAS, communication, ownership, adaptability, and stakeholder management.
Thank you very much. So, I mean,
Whether you're just starting out, growing at mid-career, or leading at senior level, Treford equips you with non-coding tech skills that companies value globally. Think practical learning, career support, and real growth. This is Treford. Visit now www.treford.africa to start learning.
very well noted, COAS. And thank you so much. Thank you for like breaking it up and giving all the different examples, at least to drive home the points. So let's talk about salary negotiations. I think at the start I talked about, I will also say this from experience. I've seen a couple of people where, they want to transition, especially the time when I think tech started for most people. People were trying to like move from their traditional jobs into tech. And then because that's more or less like starting all over, like entry level. So, for example, somebody who's getting into software development for the first time, somebody who's getting into product management for the first time, right? You are pretty much like kind of starting, fresh in that field. So, how do people like that, somebody who has been earning a lot, I saw bankers, people who were working in the bank who had to like, because tech is the rave now, they had to like move into new roles. So, how do people like that who know that this might mean, oh, I might not get as much as I was earning before, right? So how do people like that approach salary negotiation based on the fact that they have transferable skills that they're bringing to these jobs, right? So how can they still prove that even with the skills, I think I still worth, this amount that I'm asking for, so that they are able to like, there is no, how do I put it now? So they are able to like negotiate salary that really, really speaks to their value, instead of being based on the fact that they don't have as much experience, or let me say core experience in that
Mm.
particular career. Yeah.
Right. Well, salary negotiations they're never really done in silos. Salary negotiations are so much more than the person, than like there's also the industry, there is the company, there's the role, there are all of these factors, and these are the things that you have to put into consideration. But one of the first things to say when I advise people about this is really to anchor on your value. You have to tweak your mindset to see that because you're new to an industry doesn't mean that you're starting from scratch. So this is the one thing I'll correct. You're never starting from scratch. Instead, you're building on skills. You're stacking skills. And that in itself is the value that you bring to the table. So anchor on that value, not just the history. And it's important. This is why I was talking about like work-life alignment earlier. It's very important to note the accomplishments and the things that you're doing where you are right now. Whether you were a receptionist or you were a banker, there are certain things that would have been set out for you in your job description and your responsibilities. How well did you achieve those outcomes that have been set for you? Those are the things that help you build a really solid career story, that help you build the confidence that you need to negotiate. And then, of course, there's market research. What are people earning in this particular role? If you've decided, for example, to go from being somebody that was earning XY amount and you've gone down, it's probably because that is what that role is offering. But is there a better way? Maybe you didn't need to go as low as that level. Maybe there was a better entry point that you could have started out in, so that you could have like anchored your work experience. But in my own journey, one experience that comes to mind, for example, is when I was coming back from from business school, right? And I had left at the time a salary that was somewhere around 250 to 75K gross or so. And I really wanted to just double that salary. That was like the core thing in my mind. And this is why it's important to be clear about why you're doing certain things, because there's trajectories in things like this. That you start out or that you have to take a pay cut doesn't mean you will take a pay cut forever. So in coming back to that example, it's saying that the only experience I had managing people was with building my nonprofit. This was a completely pro bono role. Nobody was judging me, nobody was paying me, but I was stacking experiences, and I had only done this for about a year. When I started interviewing for this role as a general operations manager, I already knew that my potential employer valued my experience based on the fact that I had worked at PwC. And so, at the time, there wasn't also a lot of transparency with salary. And based on my research, knowing that I was coming into a managerial role, I really just wanted to be earning something 500,000 every month. Whether I lowballed myself, I don't even know. But I simply stood on that. And because I knew what I was going to deliver, I knew the value I was bringing, I knew the things I had also learned. Remember, I had just spent a whole year in business school. So I was not coming from a place of, I don't have anything to give you. I knew the value that I was coming to deliver in that role. And I basically stood on that and negotiated a salary that was times two where I was coming from, and I got it. In another year, that salary had increased. By the third year, that salary had increased. So it's also in knowing that, yes, you might start off maybe taking potentially lower, but is there a path to growth? Same thing applies to my job at Propel. I've been here for 4 years. When I first joined, I joined at the same salary I was earning before at an oil and gas company. It was good enough, but I wasn't even big on salary at that point in time. In less than a year, doubled. And then, so like but these were the reasons why I took up the role anyway. I already knew there was a potential for growth in this role, and I knew that there was a potential to make an impact, and that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So there might be times and there might be people that will have to take a pay cut. And I don't think that should dissuade anyone. Everybody's journey is different. Mine has been that I haven't had to take a pay cut, but it's not as if every single person who goes through a transition will not have to go through a pay cut. But if you were to go through a pay cut, what I would say is make sure you are coming into something where you know that there's potential for your own growth. There's potential for you to also make more money as you navigate. So say you moved from banking to product management, you could start as an APM, and first 2 years, you learn all the ropes, you take the things that you need to do. In another 2 years, when you move, your salary would not be the same. You can decide to join a completely new company and just on and on. And who knows, in 4 years, maybe you could be at Google and be earning so much more than you ever imagined.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very brilliant. Thank you for like providing clarity to that part that is usually very unclear sometimes to people. And so, I mean, let's look into your now back to your story, right? And how you navigated these different transitions and all of that. Was there any particular move, transition, or job or something that was particularly challenging? Maybe a particular phase that you had to like navigate just to find your footings, to get yourself together and all of that. And if you could also provide how you were able to get out of it to make sure that your career keeps moving.
right. Okay. I think my toughest transition journey is actually the last one. Before I moved to Propel, I was at a role in oil and gas, and I probably even had two roles at this point because I was managing stuff as a group company. And I knew that I wanted to move into a remote role, but I also had a child coming. So that was a bit hard because like I didn't feel like I had the luxury to like just do anyhow. So I threw myself into the job market like really hard. I was interviewing back to back while pregnant. Some of these were inbound, some of these I applied to myself, but somehow these roles didn't pan out till I had the baby. Now, during my maternity leave, I then had a lot more time to think more about the kind of role I really wanted to have. At this point, I wasn't just trying to work from a place of desperation or I need to get out. It was now from a place of alignment, like, how is the best way that I want to use my skills right now? At the core of it, I need a remote role. I want more flexibility. I need a role that also comes with a bit more decision-making power and maybe not as much travel because of where I am right now. So all of those things kind of made up for what I would term as what I called my dream company at the time. I did a skills audit and I also asked myself, okay, of all these experience I've gathered in 8 years at the time, which ones do I want to use? And what do I actually enjoy? So I started to draw a pattern, a theme around all the things I had done from my years at Jumia to PwC to the MBA, just even thinking through what kind of electives did I do in business school and why did I choose this kind of courses? What kind of startups do I want to work with? What kind of impact do I want to make? I started to draw themes and patterns, and I was able to come up with three core things I wanted to do: strategy, operations, and partnerships. So I was basically looking for a role that put all of these things together. And then, really, the third thing I did was kind of just tell people about it. I had applied, I had interviewed, I had done all of these things, but none of these things had panned out. So all I just did was tell a few friends, like, hey, like I'm looking for a role in strategy and ops and has a little bit of partnership. So if you have any opening or see any vacancy, please send it my way. But I didn't think much of it and I just left it at that. And so I went back from my maternity leave sometime around October, but I just could not work. I felt so disconnected from all the things I was doing. And I constantly thought about quitting and just being at home. Like, I felt like there was no point. My work didn't feel like it mattered. A lot of things had changed. The team had been reshuffled. So what I left was not what I came back to. And that was a bit hard. And so in trying to navigate all of that change, I also then had a terrible health scare. And while I was in the hospital, I realized the only thought in my head was, I need to quit. I need to be at home. I need to quit. Now, that was hard. I had a baby. Thankfully, it's a dual income household. My husband is also working. So I simply said, I'm going to take 3 months off just to cool off. I think like maybe I underestimated this motherhood thing, and I just need to rest and just be at home and just care for the child. Just driving to work and doing all these things was a bit too much for me. And that was the decision.
I guess you were in Nigeria at the
I
time.
was in Nigeria at the time. And so we decided I was going to quit the job. I quit in December, and the plan was to just rest and focus on anything else but working. So I stopped applying, I stopped doing stuff, and my inbox was still buzzing. A recruiter here, a recruiter there, a friend here. And before I knew it, one phone call, one interview, meeting the team. The team at Propel explained exactly what they were trying to do. It was right up my alley, and it didn't feel like work. It was stuff I was already doing with my nonprofit, and it was a completely remote role. And so in February, I took up this role with Propel. It was so waiting or leaving. I guess what I'm trying to say is I left that job, my old job before Propel, without anything inside. Like, I didn't have an offer. I wasn't even in any conversation with anybody. So like I wasn't even sure what would have happened. But I was determined to get my mental health in shape and just be sane and be there for my child more than anything. And in making those priorities, I didn't even need as much as a month, right, to take off. So I had to even say, look, I'm going to need to take January off. And so I can only resume in February. And really, that's it. But it was tough at the time. I didn't really think it was going to work out. I didn't know what was out there. So it was tough because I also didn't have a lot of savings. So we had to now rely on one single income from somebody, from one person instead of two of us. But all of that is history now. And I'm like super glad that even though it was tough at the time, I had the courage to try to step out and to take a chance on myself.
Oh, that's quite emotional. And I know it's kind of, I think, let me say career generally. Sometimes when you get into motherhood, it becomes tough. I am not there yet, but at least I've seen friends, talk about this. And I think there was one of my friends that got married recently, and she was just talking about, anticipating motherhood and all of those things, and then how to balance career with being a mom and all of that. And then she was just sighing. Like, I could tell that she's already having I don't want to say, it's
The
not
fear.
PTSD now, but she's already kind of anticipating that level. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't scare me now. You get. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you sharing your experience through that moment just, took me back to what she was trying to anticipate. And I think I even now even understand better now from your perspective. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you were able to go
Yeah.
through that time. Things
Yeah.
worked out.
If I could add to it, it would be that I think in retrospect, a lot of times we women, we overthink and we overproject the things that will
Mm.
happen. And but it's also not our fault, it's what we've seen. We've seen people completely drop their careers to focus on raising their kids full time. We've seen these experiences a bit more than managing, and it always seems like, oh my God, it's going to be so hard to balance. But the core thing is recognizing and understanding who you are as a person before that child, because before the child, you were a person, you were an individual. And it's in just being able to resonate with that person or express that individual. Of course, in a different way. I don't it's not like I don't work as hard as I was, but like I don't spend my time the way I did before I became a mom. So I've had to make quite a number of changes, but changes that align with what I want to do and where I'm at. It still means that, for example, at the event that we met, I didn't have a carer around that day. My husband also had another appointment he needed to be at. So that meant bringing my child to an event. It was tough because I had to do the whole traffic drive back and forth to bring him and then make sure he's not being clingy to me. But in doing those things, you remind yourself and reaffirm the fact that these things are possible, right? The way I think about it is, okay, can somebody hold a child for me? Yes. Can I get through what I'm speaking about in 20, 30 minutes? Yes. And that's more than enough, right? So rather than completely shutting down the possibility that I cannot speak because I have a child, right? So it's being able to, many times we overproject, right? And we often overproject the negative side of things and the possibility that we can't do it. But it's in being able to reframe that mindset and remind ourselves that being a mom means showing up for yourself as well as showing your kid or your kids what is possible.
Yeah, yeah, because I think we do really need to, like, we owe our children that, to let them know that life
Don't
doesn't end.
overthink it.
You have them. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't overthink it. You'll figure it out. When you're in there, you will navigate it. But also carry your partner along. There's no reason why any mom should sit down and be worrying and wondering how she'll balance it when there's supposed to be two of you managing the situation. But again, it's that projection where you feel like I'm the mom, I'm the primary carer, I'm supposed to. I've spoken at well over 30 events. I haven't taken my child to every single one of them. So you see, it's not that every single time I have to take my child. Now I've tried that. I know this arrangement is tough. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. And so if you invite me for an event, I'm simply going to look in my schedule. Does this align with XYZ? Can I find somebody to manage the child at this time? Yes, okay, I can be at the event. No, oh, for this one, I will pass. Another opportunity will come. But it doesn't mean completely shutting yourself out, right? Simply because you're trying to balance motherhood. But there's a lot of other nuances. But I guess the key thing I'm trying to say here is no one should rule themselves out, or no one should have to feel like they're having to choose. We're just constantly I don't even want to use the word balancing, but we're just constantly like juggling and harmonizing stuff. But ultimately it's being able to recognize that the most important part of your success or your career success as a mom is also very much related to the things that you think about yourself and who you actually end up with, who you marry.
I think
Sorry for the detour.
it's fine, because I was actually going to ask you, I think my next two questions are supposed to be around, balancing career with motherhood. And I'm glad that you already, like, explained it deeply from your personal experience, and also sharing tips and advice for, moms to be, already moms, and, anyone that is looking forward to that phase of life. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for, like, sharing for being vulnerable, about that story. So now moving on, right, for us to, like, kind of wrap up, can you talk to us about what does it feel like to be a VP? Like, yeah, because it's eye up there, if I think about it personally, right, what does it mean to be handling such role? Because I believe that's the global role now, right? And what is your typical day like? What are the high and lows of being a VP?
Hmm. No 2 days are the same. So it might look like a title on the outside, but really no 2 days are the same. Some days it's about looking into something that is not working and creating the structures, the processes, getting people to get on making that thing work. Sometimes it's about building frameworks for growth. Some other days it's about negotiating with partners so that I can make revenue. So it never really looks the same. Some for me at the core, it's really making sure that one customer, one community, one talent, somebody actually gets value from everything that we're creating, right? But it's also knowing that it's not everything that I do that is often always seen. Sometimes you have to do the invisible work that you can't even really explain. So because you're not necessarily like reporting per se, you're actually in charge of decisions. I guess one of the hardest parts would be taking ownership for decisions, whether they turn out good or not. So there will still be days where you ask, oh, am I sure this is the right move? Am I sure this is what we should do? But it's in being able to also get comfortable with making tough decisions. One of my, top of things that I really enjoy is helping my team succeed. Sometimes I'm the blocker because I'm not able to respond to every single thing that they come to me for, but it's really reminding to empower them. So this thing I said about decision making is really what distinguishes leaders across various organizations. So reminding people that they can also take some micro decisions and empowering them to make those decisions, to communicate. Sometimes I give them a glimpse of what is going on my end. But at the core, my role basically involves translating all those big picture ideas, our strategies into actionable goals and actually overseeing and making sure that those goals do happen. For me, I'm very big on impact. So it's also being able to weave meaning into the day-to-day and things that I do, reminding somebody on my team that, look, this is where this is going, and this is not just a random target. It's not just call 5 people. Understand that calling 5 people is going to result into this and that and that. So bringing meaning into my work is also one of the most important things that I do enjoy. But really, no 2 days are the same. Lots of meetings because I work remotely. But also
Yeah.
lots of thinking, because it's a startup. So it's not like things are established, and just lots of changes, looking at something that's not working, but also trying to build frameworks for growth so that whether I'm there or not, things can still move forward and things still go on.
Yeah. That's I mean that's how it should be. Like I mean things. I mean that I think that's one of the things that I think I've noticed too about really good leaders, that things can go on without you. And I think somebody once said that if you have a business, you're running a business, or you're running whatever it is you're running, managing people, and when you're not there, the business is not running, then you're not running a company. That's that's a big one. Yeah. So thank you for giving us a peep into what your day is like, right? So lastly, so if someone is trying to pivot today, transition into another career, what's that one thing you would advise the person to do, and one other thing that you say that
Mm,
that's not there?
okay.
Yeah.
First thing I would say is do a skills audit. All of my clients know this. There's no way you're getting on a coaching call with me that you've not first done a skills audit, because I will ask you and ask you and ask you. Making a transition is not just about like, I want to move, I want to just jump. It's not just about jumping. It's being able to understand, and this is why I say you're not really starting over. So it's being able to understand how your past experience can serve as an advantage to you where you're trying to go. So audit your skills, map out what is transferable, and we're not just saying the soft skills, whether it is that project management experience or that UX research skill that you did, whether you did it for 1 month or 3 months, does not matter. It's really what you did and the skill that you got in there that really counts. So audit your skills. It's one of the biggest things I can say. I'm actually trying to work on a transferable skills template to really help people like figure out what kind of questions you can ask so you can draw out these experiences, because sometimes
Oh, great.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
easy to just do like these tasks, and you're not really getting what am I gaining in this role. So a way that I ask people, at least one shortcut in auditing your skills, is take a look at all the tasks that you've done in a particular week and identify the themes around it. Like, what was recurring that you found yourself doing? That can be a core skill that you can decide you want to follow through. It can also be, what is the outcome that came out of it? Because that then helps you understand, what am I doing this for? So one example is, while I was at PwC, I was managing this enterprise-wide project, and that meant interfacing with all sorts of stakeholders across various departments. I'll climb upstairs, talk to this person, talk to that person, gather their requirements, take it back to the vendor, explain it, blah, blah, blah. So I was really doing a little bit of business analysis, project management, vendor management, and all of that. That experience I still use today. Whether I'm talking to a customer who wants to hire from us at Propel, I'm going to be able to understand, what are your needs at this time, and take those needs, communicate them to the talent team so that they can properly present the right profile for that particular vacancy. It also looks like going back to maybe the engineering team and saying, XYZ looks like it is not working, or I want to see this kind of improvement so that this thing can work faster, right? So it's auditing your skills is super important before you make a transition. And the second thing would just be, craft your story. I have a coaching client that runs these workshops called Your Story, Your Way. And it's so powerful that we understand what stories our experiences have gathered us, our experiences have helped us become. And when I say experiences, I don't just mean your experience in work, or in the things that you've done. I also mean your position, maybe your interest, right? All of those things come together. Most of the things I've said here have a thread of like social impact. So I know that the work I want to be doing is in social impact. I've done that in several different ways. That is my story. But my story is also this career transition experience. Do you see what I mean? It was actually in leaning into these stories that I'm starting to have these conversations, right? If I didn't share those stories, if I didn't lean into them and accept them as mine, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation today. So it's in seeing the power in your own experience, in your own journey, and crafting a really powerful story from it that really helps you stand out when you're transitioning. So just audit your skills so that you can also come from a place of power. If you don't know what you have, how would you know what you want to offer people? And then craft your story. Everything counts. For me, being the only girl when I first started working is an experience I still face today. A couple of months ago, I put out a tweet saying, when I started my first job, I was the only girl, team of 8. I've just come out of a VP leadership retreat, only woman, 12 years, no change. That is my story, you see? So really those stories count, and I can use that as an interview note. I can ask a recruiter, for example, what is the balance of women's, not that it matters, but like, I'm just saying, own your story, craft it, audit your skills so you know what you have, what power you have, and the patterns in your experiences so far.
Yeah, thank you for leaving us with that, that very insightful advice. And I have enjoyed this conversation, to be honest. And I can't wait to go and listen to it again and again, just to and I also know that that will be the same for our audience, when they get to watch that. So thank you so much for joining me today and also sharing your story. Like, it's quite inspiring to see how you've moved through all these phases and you're still standing. And then I'm sure there's a lot of things, people, I mean, we all can learn from, how far you've come. And yeah, we're proud.
Thank you so much for having me. I do hope everyone finds this valuable, and most importantly, that you are able to find something practical, right, to take away from
Yeah.
here and apply to your own life and career.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Wamide.
My pleasure.